Hi, my name is Tom Broussard. I am so glad to have this opportunity to talk about my experience at UF Health because it was an amazing experience. So I'm glad we're doing this. Um, I have a couple of questions that I have from you, and I'm gonna read about them. The first one is, what would I say about the team at UF Health? Um, I know this is a longer story. I'll try and make it short. I had heart issues, and I was having trouble breathing, and went to the local hospital. And within an hour, they could tell that I was having heart issues, not really my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. And I would require some kind of heart intervention. I had already had open heart surgery, and they did tell me about this thing called TAVR, and thought that maybe that would work, but they couldn't do the work. And they sent me to SHADS at UF Health in Gainesville. I went there a couple days later, and on a Friday, and I was relatively stable, although I'd had attacks before. And they checked everything and said, okay, it does look like you should get TAVR, and but they've already scheduled all of the patients for the following week. So I'd be a week later. And they said, we'll send you home. You can stay stable, wait a week, and then come back for TAVR. And I didn't know. I thought that would be okay. By then, the nurses were there. I was there. I began to understand just how dangerous this was with this, what turns out to be an aortic valve that I'd had before with open heart, and it too was damaged, and I desperately needed a new one. So they thought they would send me home on that Saturday. I was okay if they said it was okay. But the nurses were worried, and I was worried too. So the next day, before getting ready to go home, I had another attack, a breathing attack. And as a result, if you've ever seen that before, when you can't breathe, you really can't breathe. And I couldn't even say anything. So I started beating on the bed, the equivalent of my screaming. And obviously they called for a ventilator. And in the minute or two that it took for the person, and they told me it was a ventilator expert, he showed up, he brought the machine. I'm sure it just took a minute or two. And while I was just screaming and beating on the bed, he was talking to me, calming me down, really quite an expert as it was. And he was, while he was talking to me, it's like knitting, his hands were going, plugging things in, fixing everything, getting it all ready. And within a minute or two, they put what I now think is an industrial CPAP on me. And I eventually started to breathe using that machine. So it's an amazing device that I had never seen before, experienced it before until the attack I had the day before. So that person was an expert. He was quite part of this team at UF Health that made me get better based on their experience and the tools that they had. But I woke up the next day. I didn't wake up, but I was, using this mask for a long, long time. 14 hours later, they took it off, and I was able to communicate a little bit more. And all those nurses were smiling. And 2 days before, a day before, they weren't smiling that I might have to leave. And I really thought, why are you smiling? And they said, well, the good news is that you're going to stay. We're not going to send you home. That would have been awful. I would have been bad. And they said, as a matter of fact, you're so good that you are now #1, and everybody for next week's surgery have all been bumped ahead, and you are #1 on that particular Tuesday morning. So that was the beginning of me understanding just what heroic these people are, who otherwise do it day to day, and they have no idea that they're heroes, and often aren't, until you go through it yourself, because you're on the inside and you get to see just what it takes for people to do what they otherwise think is just somewhat easy, because they've been working on it and know the ropes, as it were, to work day to day. So the UF Health team, we're all heroes for me. That's for sure. So that was number one. What do I say about the team at UF Health? They are all heroes. They really are. The next one, would you recommend UF Health to other people? Well, given my experience, why wouldn't I tell them? I have talked to lots of people over the years since, and it's been 3 years, about open heart and TAVR and what you have to go through. And yes, there are some times when you have to basically have the opportunity to think through it and say, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this hospital, another hospital, this doctor, another doctor, this surgeon, another surgeon. And there is a difference between all of those who are on one end of that spectrum and those on the other. And they're all good, no doubt about it. But those people who have done it 50 times a year versus the people who've done it 250 times a year, that gives you more assurance of what they are capable of doing over time. So in my particular case, I have, and I will continue to say, that the entire team, again, because it isn't just because of the surgery or the doctor or the nurse or this expert with the ventilator, they were all experts at what they do and really heroes in their own way. So I do appreciate what they all have done. And that's how I would recommend them. Anybody at all to go to SHADS and UF Health. Let's see, the next one. What would you say to people contemplating having surgery at UF Health? In my case, of course, I was in an emergency condition. I didn't have time at all. Obviously, I was at one hospital. They couldn't even do the procedure at their own hospital, which is a big hospital here locally. They had to send me as fast as they could, and it still took a couple days to get to SHADS and UH Health in Gainesville. So they there was no time to decide, well, maybe I'll go to this town versus that town. They discussed it and told me that the best place to go was to SHADS and UF Health and see these particular people and this particular doctor, Dr. A, what I refer to. So that was all I needed to know. When you want the best doctor and the best hospital, there is no doubt that SHADS and UF Health is the best. And again, I can attest to that because I'm alive to tell you about it. If I wasn't, well, then maybe it was somebody else, but it isn't. They are heroes in every possible way. And the last question, what would you say to Dr. A and his team if you could? Well, for the couple days before my surgery, it was quite a team. I was their particular ICU cubby, and I loved the cubby. It was very much like a family environment. I could see all of the staff, and they could see me. There were very few, I forget how many there were, maybe 10 or 12 in the cubby, which is the old hospital. Now you're at the new building, which is completely different. And they were obviously taking good care of me even the days before the surgery. Obviously, I had the attack, and they had to go into battle to take care of me along the way. But and Dr. A came to see me several times, spent lots of time talking, having a good conversation, asking me about my life before all of this, which was all very, very nice, because as a result of for him to be able to understand who I was, and I was trying to understand who he was. So that was the beginning of a good relationship, which is useful when you're in the hands of somebody else and somebody else's heart. So that was a lot of fun talking to Dr. A. And he got to understand more about my stroke and other health issues prior to the heart issue. So that was also helpful. But it really cemented this for me was on that Tuesday morning, early in the morning. I was set up to be the first person in what they called a hybrid OR. They explained a little bit. I can't explain it now, but where I had to go to. And Dr. A showed up with all the other doctors, surgeons, helpers, I can't even pronounce that word, the person taking care of my anesthesia, and nurses all around me. They were in a bed ready to go. So I really was rolled right out to the door, because you could see people were holding on and saying, okay, is this guy going or not? I mean, it was that close to moving. And Dr. A led the team and said, okay, have each person in that group discuss their thoughts and opinions about how things were going, what they expect to see, whether I was fit enough to have the operation. I know it's called a procedure, but it seemed like an operation to me. And one of the doctors said, I've been watching Tom for all these other issues, and I am a little concerned that he might be too weak to be able to withstand it. So he needs to build up his strength because of the attack, because it's been now a week since the old hospital. So that person was saying that I'm voting that we should wait up for another week and let him get better, as it was. They go all around the table, me being the table. And at the end, Dr. A summarizes everygoing. And he says the following, because I remember this, and I've asked him several times since then. He says, we're going to do this today. And you could see everybody holding on to the bed, ready to go. I know my nurses were happy about that too. He says, we have to do this today. He said, I think if we wait another day or another week, I'm afraid that he won't make it. That was me listening to all this and saying, oh, won't make it. So I said, won't make it as in, and he looked at me and he said, if we don't do this today, you might die. Okay. Dr. A said, it's time to go. He looked around at everybody in the team. They all looked at him and said, okay, it is time to go. And that was the end of that. So if ever there was an opportunity to go to SHADS, see Dr. A, get your surgery, whatever it might be, that is the best team you can depend on. They are all heroes day to day. I mean, they don't think that they're in a battle that is life or death, although it really is for us and for them as well, because they get to see what it's going to look like when sometimes we don't make it. But I was lucky enough. So I am glad I go to see Dr. A every year, just because I want to see him. I want to listen to his voice. I always have questions for him every year. I bring my new books whenever I'm there and give him a new copy. So Dr. A and his team at UF Health are all heroes every day. Thank you very much. I do appreciate this opportunity to share some of my thoughts about what it's like to get a TAVR at SHADS and UF Health. Thanks again. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.